Hey, Renter Retires, it's Adam Schrader here with another episode, joined as usual by the founder and CEO of Renter Retirement, Zach Lee Master. And today we're talking with another it's Adam Kintagh from Nevada Corporate Headquarters. He is an executive corporate analyst there. And we're going to talk about asset protection because it's something everybody eventually is going to need. So, other Adam, thanks for joining us.
Good. Hello. How are you doing?
Pretty good. And I want to hop into just the topic right away because a lot of people don't hop into the topic right away. And that is the eternal question of asset protection. When do I start?
Yes. One of those questions that always comes up is, should I have insurance? Should I have an LLC? And the answer is you really should have both. So insurance is a hedge against loss. I like to remind people, always keep a good insurance policy. However, the insurance companies have adjusters and attorneys whose job it is to pay out as little as possible on claims. And you don't want to be that guy where something bad happens, accident happens, the insurance company says, sorry, we don't cover that, and you're left holding the bag. So having that LLC in place is step one. You start buying property, you start building your rental portfolio, go ahead and get the LLC done. You've got a solid foundation to build and protect your assets. That's just the world we live in.
Yeah. And I understand we were talking right before we started that a lot of people, when they come to you, they've got, multiple properties, they're looking at it and they get kind of sticker shock whenever they look at kind of building their whole, asset protection thing. So it's actually kind of beneficial, you were saying, to start early.
Yeah. So the question is, I only have one rental property. Do I really need to have an LLC in place? And the answer is you really should. Whether you have one property or you have 5 properties, 10 properties, having those LLCs is really what's going to protect you and your family in the event of a lawsuit. And the world we live in today has gotten so far away from suing someone that's done something wrong to just trying to tie in the deep pockets. And we've got 1.3 million attorneys in the U.S. There's just not enough good cases to go around. These guys get stuck taking bad cases with bad facts, just trying to make a living. They can find $30,000 of equity somewhere. They'll take the case for free. So having that LLC and having it set up properly, either in Nevada or Wyoming, is such a deterrent. So I was teaching a class in Dallas, Texas, a rental property boot camp, and there was literally all these students in the audience. And one of the students was an attorney, and he specializes in piercing the corporate veil. And recently, I've had people say, well, I heard that if you set up an LLC, it really doesn't do anything to protect you. Attorneys will blow right through those LLCs. And I agree, if it's not set up properly, if it's not set up in Nevada or Wyoming. So this attorney says, listen, I specialize in piercing the corporate veil. And if I see 1, 2, even 3 people's name on public record, I pierce the veil almost 95% of the time. Nobody ever sets these things up right. They never maintain them properly. We have a huge success in veil piercing. He said, if I see Nevada or Wyoming, I won't even take the case. I can't get paid.
Yeah, they're serious about it.
Yeah,
so what you're talking
about,
go ahead.
The greatest victory is the battle never fought. So having that LLC formed is just a great way to protect you and your family.
And what you're talking about with piercing the corporate veil, this would be an example of, let's say you do set up an LLC on the property, but an attorney is basically able to fight through that to still get to personal assets and other assets, really, right? Is that what you're talking about?
That's it. The goal of every attorney, sue the LLC, take whatever it has, and sue you personally as the owner of the LLC. And statistically, the corporate veil gets pierced almost 50% of the time. This is exclusively with small business when you have 5 shareholders or less. So if it's just you or you and a spouse, maybe a couple partners involved in the business, that puts you at the top of the veil piercing spectrum. It makes it really easy for lawyers to make alter ego claims. They say, well, you own the LLC, you control the LLC, you are the LLC. This is nothing more than a sham. And pretty much every state in the country, there's anywhere from 6 to 10 ways of piercing the veil. Ultimately, it's up to a judge to decide whether or not you should be held liable. And that is the value of setting this thing up either in Nevada or Wyoming, is it has the highest standard of protection. To pierce the veil is a 3-prong test. All 3 prongs must be met. And the 3rd prong being to prove fraud or manifest injustice, which requires the courts go inside your mind to determine your ill intent. We have just a handful of veil piercings. So if there was a few cases where Ponzi schemes like the Bernie Madoff deal, a few cases guys were selling mining rights for land that was owned by the Bureau of Land Management. It's like you or me trying to sell the Statue of Liberty. There was a recent case in Wyoming called the Green Hunter Energy case, where a corporation set up a wholly owned subsidiary LLC and then ran it as a complete sham to defraud creditors. So bottom line, you form this LLC, you're not committing fraud. It gives you the very best legal protection.
You mentioned something in there that we haven't talked about, and that is, you said, proper management of it, or, proper maintenance of the LLC. What are you talking about there? Because a lot of times people think, I've got an LLC, got a registered agent, I'm done. Is that not right?
No, it's a really good question. So when we're forming an LLC, the first thing is you have to have all the pieces to be in compliance with state and federal law. So you have your initial organizational minutes, operating agreement. You need to have a record book with membership certificates and a corporate seal. Those are the pieces. Now, the problem is that most people, they just go to the Secretary of State and they file the articles of organization. They go, that was pretty easy. They go and log on to the IRS website and get an EIN number. Go open up a bank account and wow, that's pretty good. The problem is when they get sued, the lawyer subpoenas their corporate record book, which most people don't have. And even if they have one, most of the time it's not up to date. So I always ask the question, how many people have done a good job with resolutions, amendments, and meeting minutes? And I rarely get anybody that says yes. Almost every single time they say, I haven't done any of that stuff. So that's why the veil gets pierced so often. Well, when we form an LLC, we write into the operating agreement that your only legal requirement is that you have one board meeting every year. And it's silly. There is no legal requirement that any details of this meeting be documented. We only have to document the meeting was held and you and your partners were present. So every year it's time to renew. We always send out renewal notifications with annual meeting minutes. You could literally write on that page, the LLC will operate the same this year as it did last year. Sign it, date it, put it in the record book. That is it. Very simple to maintain. When signing contracts and agreements, most people don't know this, but when we form an LLC, you could be manager, member, or managing member. Well, the word member means owner. We always do our best to keep your ownership private. So in signing contracts and agreements, if it asks for initials, you just initial with your initials. If it asks for a signature, you should always sign Adam Schrader, manager, or as manager of ABC Property Group LLC. So just doing those simple things, it goes such a long way, so that if there is an accident and they subpoena the record book and they look at documents, everything is correct. It's not rocket science. It just needs to be done right.
You're getting into some logistics where probably most people's eyes are glazing over and they're going, I don't want to deal with that, but it's one of those important things, Adam, and I think definitely touching on the maintenance aspect of it, because that's huge, right? We see that all the time when people are like, I set up my LLC and I'm good to go. And that could actually be counterproductive if it's not done appropriately on the front end and maintained appropriately. Personally, I like to, hire professionals to do that for me. So one, make sure it's done appropriately. And second, because I don't want to think about it and do it. But we personally use NCH both as a business and with all of our personal real estate. So you guys handle all of this for us. I agree on, the Nevada and Wyoming LLCs. That's something that when you're quoting actual cases, you're talking about case law, which, that's how the legal process works. So when you do get litigated, they look at case law to pull from previous cases. And if there's a strong case law protecting the corporate veil, those are states where you want to have your assets in. And I'm not an attorney, of course, but I do hire the best team that I feel to protect my assets. But I think the big picture here is that this is one of those things that, aside from litigation, because yes, we live in a litigious society and lawsuits are rare, but they can happen, right? You don't want to be the, statistical person that just find yourself in a lawsuit and doesn't have things protected appropriately, because this is your hard-earned money that you worked for. You want to protect it. We always talk about that as you grow your net worth and grow your business and your real estate portfolio. Like, protecting it is just as important, if not more important, than building it in the first place. But you need to operate your real estate portfolio like a business, and that's why these things are important. So don't let this distract you or deter you from investing, because this is one of those things that I think maybe some people are like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to set it up. And like, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can certainly have someone, and it's not overly expensive either. But I agree, it's one of these necessary steps. It's a business expense. It's part of running a business. Like, you got to set up an LLC for a business. Just approach this as running a business, and I think it just helps to like set up separate bank accounts that you open up under the IN, right? That's also part of not piercing that corporate veil. You're not commingling funds with your personal accounts. You're separating those, but have a team that's going to actually walk you through that and assist you with all those items. I think is really essential. There's some other logistical questions, Adam, I want to run by you, because once you go down the rabbit hole, like, do I need an LLC and how to do it? Like, it's going to be overwhelming, right? It's a sea of information and we're just swimming in it. And there's like 1,000 different ways to set up LLCs appropriately. You can do them as a series LLC. You can do, do I do one LLC per property? Do I do, multiple properties? Do I set it up before I buy the property, after? There's a lot of different things. I think what the blanket answer that I'll say is, like, each situation is different. You would probably agree with that, right? And it's important to be working with a team of professionals that both understand your situation, because everyone's in a different position. Some people are W-2 earners. Some of them are, have their own business. You might have retirement accounts. You might have, multiple other assets. Like, that all is important. Do you own the property all cash with a ton of equity? Or do you have leverage on the property where you only have the equity that's exposed, a small amount, the 20% down or whatever, or is it a high expensive property, that may demand its own LLC? So let's kind of just, without getting too into the weeds, which I just did, but like, what is your recommendation for people? I guess the first question is, and I want to talk about the lending aspect, because, due on sale clause, things like that. People, that's kind of, I think I've heard less questions about that over time, because people realize that they just, transfer the deed. But one of the first questions that everyone asks is, I'm looking to invest in real estate. This is my first property. Do I set up the LLC now and then buy the property? I have to close, and likely I'm using conventional financing, my Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, meaning I have to close in my own name, and like, I can't even use the LLC. Now, we've noticed some people that's like a roadblock for them. They're like, I don't want to set up my business. I'm never going to invest in real estate. I mean, it can be done easily after you own real estate. And even if you've owned real estate for years, it's not too late. What is your recommendation for people if they're newer investor, that first property? Like, do I need an LLC before I buy that property? What do you tell them?
Yeah, and the answer is no. You can go buy the property now, and at whatever point you're comfortable, form the LLC. It's a simple quit claim deed. We literally record with the county clerk's office, moving the property from your name to the name of the LLC, and it's a simple quit claim, QUITCLAIM, moving the property out of your name and into the LLC. It can be done before or after, and it really depends on the lending. So you have some lenders that are doing like a DSCR, the debt service coverage ratio loans, where they're fine with the LLC. Then you go the other direction where you're getting a 30-year fixed rate mortgage where the lender says, nah, I got to close in your name. Okay, close in my name. We'll wait 30 days and quick claim the property to the LLC. So whether you do it before you buy the LLC or after, in most cases, it doesn't matter. But again, you want to be proactive in getting it done before you have problems, because the worst thing is to have an issue arise and everything's in your name. So even if you got sued personally, it's one of our unique protection mechanisms. If I have 6 boys and 5 of them drive, they drive my vehicles. If they get in a wreck, guess who's getting sued? That's me. So you get brought into a deposition. Yeah, you got to list everything you own, your house, your cars, and you own the LLC, which if it's not set up in Nevada or Wyoming, they sue you and take the LLC that has your investments. So again, we do it in Nevada or Wyoming. They can sue you. They can win. They cannot touch the LLC to satisfy your personal debts and obligations. So it's a matter of being proactive in terms of when you do it. Well, it's a matter of your risk tolerance level and how many assets do you want in your name.
Did I just hear an Adam that has more kids than our Adam? Is that? So that's a good point though. And I think it's, kind of the summary that I heard from you is an LC essential? Yes, it is. And I would agree with that. At some point you're likely going to need to establish one, and it's really important. Like, this is one of the things where you don't just save. I mean, you likely don't need a $20,000 LLC structure, right? There are companies out there that sell that crazy high stuff, but you should have budget and expect to have, whatever, a couple grand. I don't know what the costs are for the beginning investor, a few hundred, a couple grand, just to set it up appropriately and have someone maintaining it. That's just the cost of doing business. It's a tax expense. It's a business expense. It legitimizes the business, something that you can use moving forward, right? It's not a one-time thing. So I think it's something set up. So yes, necessary to set up, and it can be done before or after you buy the property, really depending on your situation and depending on lending. Because like you mentioned, the DSCR lenders, they may require you to close in an LLC. So in that instance, you may need to set it up. But if you're going conventional, which a lot of people do, your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, you need to close in your own name, and then you transfer the deed to the LLC for ownership and holding purposes after you close it. That's a common practice. That's something we personally do as well, and most investors do. So, of course, we're all here to coach you through how to do that. And if you have questions and want to speak with the NCH team, I'm sure, Adam, we could throw up the link that people can reach out and connect with you guys and go through. You could talk to us a little bit about how you work with clients. Adam, you guys don't charge for consultations, right? This is being part of the Rent to Retirement Network, is that you'll offer free consultations and not charge anyone where they could be charged $300 to $500 for half an hour talking to an attorney and accomplish nothing. You guys are offering free consultation as much as they need. Then of course you charge if they want you to set up the LLC. Is that accurate? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, 100%. So that one of the 7 habits of highly effective people is seek first to understand, then be understood. So we just get an idea of how many properties do you have? What do you do for work? So that we can really figure out the best timing for you to get the LLC established. And it costs not a dime, whether it's a tax question you have, a legal question you have, doesn't cost a dime. We have a whole team of experts that are here to help you in getting things set up and operating properly. But our number one goal is to have a structure in place that is manageable, scalable, and financially efficient. So like you said, there are companies that say, well, you need one LLC for this and another LLC for that, and then a holding company. It turns into a nightmare to try and manage. So that is not the NCH way. We want to keep it simple, minimal number of LLCs as needed so that you can manage things. Because setting it up is one thing, and now you have to manage it. And when you get these complicated structures, it just turns into a nightmare. And if it's not done right, it is worthless. So we really want to keep it simple.
Yeah, from an accounting standpoint and from a tax side too. If you have 100 different LLCs out there, it's just crazy, right? I mean, it's just really, really complicated. So
does it make it easy to track if you close a conventional loan in your name, you have to quit claim? I mean, isn't a lawyer just going to see, oh, look, Adam quit claimed a deed to an LLC where Adam is the member of it? I mean, how much of a paper trail are you leaving whenever you do that quit claim?
Yeah, so the question that comes up is, at the time the incident gave rise to a lawsuit, whose name is on record? I don't care who used to be on record, who's on record now. So that is the urgency of why we would want to do it sooner than later. You don't want to have an accident happen 2 years from now. You get a notice that a person slipped and fell on the property 2 years ago, and they're just now bringing it to litigation. And at that time, your name was on record, therefore you're responsible. So that's really the truth of it, is I don't care who used to be on record. At the time that a problem arose, was your name on record or not? Because if it was you, you're responsible. If it was the LLC, you're protected.
Yeah, they'll find you. I mean, you can make it harder in certain states, right, to have that anonymity. But in most cases, like if there's a legitimate claim, I mean, some attorneys could give up, but like if you're going to go to court, they're going to look at exactly what entity is in current ownership at time of incident. So, okay. Unfortunately, I've been down that route. But what else? What other what other common questions do we get from a lot of investors when they're considering LLC structuring?
Yeah. A lot of people, well, first off, a lot of our investors come from California, where LLC structures, they don't seem to care about them all that much because they just I think you don't even have to pierce the veil because it doesn't seem like there's much of a veil. So when it comes to, setting it up, you mentioned, Wyoming, Nevada being great, but doesn't it eventually have to flow through an LLC in your state, or is that not the case?
Yeah, so we have to register the LLC appropriately with the state where your property is located. The process is called foreign filing, and we actually do that paperwork for you. It's really simple. So you're organized under the laws of Wyoming, registered to do business in Alabama or Florida, or wherever you're buying that property. It's just a simple process of registering there. We don't need to have all these different companies. There's some people say, well, you need to have a Wyoming LLC managing your California LLC. And again, it turns into a nightmare to try and manage. By having that Wyoming LLC registered with the state you're buying property in, it gives you the very best protection. And remember, there's also the Corporate Transparency Act coming up where there'll be a database online of ownership of everything. And this is why it's so important that you're just operating through the LLC, signing contracts and agreements as manager. Assuming you got it set up right, you have nothing to worry about. Really, peace of mind, knowing that it's done right. But yeah, we have to register appropriately with whatever state you're buying property. And kind of the rule of thumb is we don't want to have more than 3 to 5 properties per LLC. I don't like to have more than $1 million of fair market value per LLC. We never mix commercial with residential. And at the end of the day, it boils down to your risk tolerance level and how many eggs you want in that basket.
Yeah, the individualized plan, of course, each person is going to be in a different situation and have different assets, net worth, risk tolerance, things like that. So it's important to have an individualistic plan. So I think you just answered the common question of, I thought I was told that I need to have an LLC in the state that it was offered. Well, you need to have a business that is registered in that state. So that's what you do for filing. And then that also, in most cases, means you need to have a registered agent, which you guys also provide those services as well, correct?
Yeah, we have offices in all 50 states to serve as the registered agent. And that's your only. So the registered agent is the legal address on record that receives notice in the event of a lawsuit. It also is the address that the state sends your renewal notices. Every year, some states are $0 renewal. You just have to file a report that says we're in business. Some states are a couple $100. But we have to register appropriately with that state and then do the obvious renewals appropriately. But the registered agent, it must be a physical address open for service of process Monday through Friday during business hours from 9 to 5. So I always remind people, if you live in Indiana and you are registering the LLC there, you could be your own registered agent. If you're not home all the time, you should probably have us be the registered agent, because we have an office in Indiana that receives service of process in the event of a lawsuit. We receive renewal paperwork and just stay on top of that stuff for you.
Plus, you don't want your primary residence probably listed on the registered agent. So, what are the typical costs for setting up an LLC structure for the average person? Obviously, this varies based on the intricacy and the real estate portfolio, but like just the average investor for the first 1 or 2 properties, like what's the average cost, would you say?
Yeah, so $1,300 to set up an LLC. It covers everything. We have to register appropriately with the state that you're in. Usually, a registered agent is $197 per year per state. So if you're buying one rental property, we're organizing under the laws of Wyoming, registering with Indiana or Alabama or whatever state may be, a couple $100 to register there. And then your annual renewal cost is generally $289 a year for Wyoming, and then between $100 and $300 a year, depending on what state you're buying property in. So that's really the answer is plan on budgeting $289 for Wyoming, $300 as a renewal fee for whatever state you're owning property in. Could be a little less, could be a little bit more, but that's generally what you're looking at.
It seems crazy to me that Wyoming and Nevada are really the 2 safe ones, because you look at kind of the real estate rules and the landlord friendliness of all of these states. Do you have any general idea of why on earth it can be there's so many landlord friendly states and yet so few really LLC friendly states, it seems like?
I would be lying if I gave you an answer. It's as with anything. I do know that all the big companies are incorporated in Delaware. Delaware has the best laws for big business, and the laws are so good that those companies pay the state of Delaware millions and millions of dollars a year in renewal fees. uh, which these people, all the big companies gladly pay it because all the laws protect the shareholders, which is how Wall Street wants it. But because Delaware makes so much money off big business, they have nothing special for small business, and that's where Nevada came in. So thanks to the mob, back in the 1950s and 60s, when the mob came to Nevada, no joke, they started heavily influencing our politicians to create all these great laws to protect their business operations. And even though the mob officially moved to Wall Street back in the early 90s, Nevada kept its laws strong for small business, big revenue generator for Nevada. Well, over the years, Wyoming has modeled their laws after Nevada, and they actually have made them better. And the renewal cost is significantly less. $577 a year to renew in Nevada. Wyoming is $289. I figure we're saving $300 a year, and we're getting better laws. We're going Wyoming. So we get the strongest corporate veil. We get charging order protection. So that's a really big deal. If they sued if you have a company set up in Illinois and if they can demonstrate that you're not able to satisfy the judgment within a reasonable time frame, which is 90 to 120 days, judicial foreclosure begins and they can start foreclosing on cash or assets. We set it up in Nevada or Wyoming. The charging order or the judgment they would receive is the sole and exclusive remedy of the judgment creditor, eliminating the possibility of judicial foreclosure. You become the worst nightmare of these attorneys. They can sue and they can win, but they can't get paid. Can't pierce the veil. You're not committing fraud. Can't foreclose on cash or assets. They're stuck with the judgment, hoping you someday distribute a profit. And the lawyers know the game. That LLC will never be profitable again, and they will not get a dime. So, really important.
I love how you say the mob heavily influenced. That's nice and subtle. When it comes to selling properties, let's say, I've bought in Alabama, moved the properties into my, LLCs to be structured properly. I'm going to sell the property now. In general, I know based on our talk previously, it sounds like it may not be the same every single time, but are you having to then take it from the LLC, quit claim it back to yourself, and then sell it? Or is it a lot of times just sell it straight out of the LLC?
Yeah, the LLC generally is going to get the check. I see, unless you were doing maybe a 1031 exchange or something that required you to move the property back to your name, we just sell it out of the LLC. In most cases, even if you're doing a 1031 exchange, that LLC sold the property, that LLC buys a new one. Super easy. So you'll have a checking account for the LLC. It will collect rent, pay expenses, whatever's left over, write yourself a check. That says operating the business. Just don't use the LLC checkbook to pay for your groceries. We don't want to commingle funds. And then when the property sells, your LLC gets the check. It can turn around and literally just write you a check. Most people, the LLC is disregarded for tax purpose, meaning it does not even file a separate return. Any profit or loss will report on your personal tax return, 1040 Schedule E, exactly the same as if you did not have the LLC. So you don't have to worry about filing all these extra tax returns. Yesterday, I had a conference call with one of our rent-to-retirement students, and we were on with her CPA. And even though he's a great CPA, his question was, well, Adam, do I have to file something extra in Wyoming because it's established in Wyoming? And the answer is no, you don't. You file the taxes exactly the same as if we had set up the LLC in that state. So there's no additional tax filings in most cases. You could be taxed as a partnership where the LLC sells a property and you and your partner both get a check for whatever that profit is. The LLC just gives you a K-1 that you report on your taxes that you made, half of $100,000 sale. You got 50 grand, your partner got 50 grand. We report that in your tax return if it was a partnership. So that's generally the two ways we do it with real estate investments. Either the LLC is disregarded or is taxed as a partnership. Super easy.
Yeah, again, it's supposed to, that's all why it's important to have a team to handle this for you, because my mind started spinning as you go through some of this stuff. But I
totally got all of that.
It's just having the right professionals handle it for you. Obviously, we recommend NCH because that's who we personally use, and we've had good experience with you guys. But another thing I think that's important to point out is that it's not just like the entity structuring. You guys offer additional services, more of a comprehensive approach where you offer tax services, you offer business credit, estate planning, And I'll let you talk about some of the other things you offer. But I think that kind of in my mind, what I like about how you guys approach the business world with real estate and helping your investors is that, the right hand is talking to the left hand, the tax side is talking to the legal side. It's like you're not having a separate CPA that's going, well, I'm not really familiar with this, and I don't know what I'm doing, which probably is a red flag. I hear that all the time about people, whether they're doing their own taxes or they have a CPA that they just happen to come across for normal operations, but now they're getting into the real estate investing world, and maybe that CPA isn't the best for them. But it's really important to have everyone on the same page, so you're doing things appropriately, and it makes life easy. So it's just automated. So you guys, that's why like the tax service side goes hand in hand with the LLC if people want to utilize that. But Adam, can you just real quickly, as we kind of summarize and come to a closing here, just go through bullet point all the things that you help investors with?
Yeah. So the backbone of our company is forming corporations and LLCs. But in-house, we have a full legal department. We have one of the best CPA firms. We do tax and accounting for business owners and investors all over the country. We have a business credit team, if you want to separate business credit from personal credit. We have a team that does custom business plans. We do the estate planning like trust and wills. And then we also do self-directed IRAs, self-directed solo Ks, if you need help with those items. So it's all the support services is what we specialize in. I am not a financial advisor. I am not the attorney. I'm not the CPA. We have professionals to do that work appropriately. I don't tell people what to buy, when to buy, or where to buy. I just make sure that it's done right from a tax and legal standpoint so that it is, again, manageable, scalable, and financially efficient. So it's not just setting it up, but then working with you along the way. So we have a whole team that's our genius, is that we work with you along the way. So 5 years from now, business needs change, you sell a property, you have a question. We have a whole team of support personnel that are just there to help answer questions and make sure you don't screw things up.
Yeah, that's great. That's really important to have that team approach. And I had forgotten about the retirement vehicle investing with a solo 401k or a self-directed IRA. So thank you for mentioning that. You guys have also formed some pretty large companies as well and represent them, like I think it's Rockstar and some other organizations as well. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah. So I think the founder of Rockstar sold that company for like $3.6 billion, where when she formed the company in 2001, it wasn't me personally, but our company set up her corporation and then worked with her over the years doing her taxes and such. So that as the owners grew that business, we were on the back end helping structure things properly from a tax and legal standpoint. And yeah, could you imagine a $3.6 billion payday off of a business that started in your garage? That's what happened.
That's awesome. So you work with the small business owners, but you have experience helping people grow and scale their businesses to a high level as well, which is
correct. Yeah, and specifically with real estate, again, we're not the people to tell you what to buy, when to buy, and where to buy, but we will make sure it's set up properly. You'll have peace of mind knowing it's done right. In the event of an accident, you're not going to have problems. We're able to make sure you do it efficiently from a tax standpoint. And I like to remind everybody, whether you use our CPAs or anybody else, your CPA is only as good as the record you keep. So you should do a good job with just keeping record of expenses for properties that you're purchasing and such, so that whatever CPA you use can do good work for you.
Fantastic. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. If you want to schedule a call with NCH, you can go to renttoretirement.com/about. They're on our team page right there. You can schedule a call with them. That's renttoretirement.com/about. And you can also see there all of the inventory that you can buy that you actually need to protect. That's at renttoretirement.com. Just click on the turnkey inventory and you'll see it right there. And don't forget, if you have any questions about this, whether it's about asset protection or just real estate investing in general, email those questions to podcast@renttoretirement.com, and Zach and I will answer them in a future episode. And if you send us something that we don't know, we'll go to people like Adam and say, Adam, help us answer this question, and we will get that up for you there. So Adam, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. To everyone else, thank you for spending the time educating yourself today. We'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.